clear, Mayday, 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 Pakistan 8303.
Pakistan 8303, roger sir, both runways available to land.
Mayday, Mayday, Mayday. Pakistan 8303, Pakistan 8303. These were the desperate words from the pilot as the aircraft hovered just 600 feet above Karachi. It was a blistering afternoon in Pakistan's largest city, Karachi. The streets were quiet. People stayed indoors to escape the scorching heat. It was 2:35 p.m., and no one had the slightest idea that within moments, a major emergency would strike their city. PIA Flight PK8303 had just declared a Mayday, a distress signal that meant the pilot had lost control of the aircraft. Seconds after the signal, a massive explosion shook Karachi. The sky turned black with thick smoke. The Airbus A320 crashed in the densely populated model colony, just 430 meters short of the airport. What's shocking is, the investigation later revealed there was no technical fault in the plane. Then, how did this tragedy happen? What was the conversation between the pilot and air traffic control in those final minutes? Why did the first landing attempt fail? And what secrets were revealed in the 3-year investigation? Welcome to another intense episode from Who Official. On May 22nd, 2020, Flight 8303 was scheduled to take off from Lahore at 1 p.m. and land at Karachi International Airport, a short flight of just 1 hour and 45 minutes. At the time, the COVID lockdown was in full effect. Flights were limited, but it was the holy month of Ramadan, and Eid holidays were near. Flights were few, but passenger demand was high. This flight was packed with 91 passengers and 8 crew members. The weather? Perfect, both in Lahore and Karachi. The pilot was 58-year-old Captain Sajid Gul, a veteran with 24 years of experience at PIA and 18,000 flight hours under his belt. His first officer was 33-year-old Usman Azam, with 10 years at PIA. The aircraft? A 16-year-old Airbus A320, powered by 2 CFM56 turbofan engines, and they played a crucial role in what was about to unfold. After a slight 5-minute delay, the plane took off at 1:05 p.m. Soon, Flight 8303 reached its cruising altitude of 34,000 feet. The pilots were offered snacks, but they were fasting and politely declined. Cruising peacefully, the pilots began chatting casually. By 1:20 p.m., the aircraft crossed Nawab Shah and was handed over to Karachi Control Tower. At this point, the control tower assigned them a route to Makli. Usually, there are 3 flight paths from Nawab Shah to Karachi. Nawab Shah 2A via Hyderabad, then right turn near Kinjar Lake. Nawab Shah 2B direct to Karachi, left at Makli, right to airport. Nawab Shah 1C direct from Nawab Shah to Makli. All these routes are preloaded in the flight management computer. Initially, Flight 8303 was assigned Route 2A, a longer route, but on the pilot's request, they were cleared to fly direct to Makli to save time. It was a low traffic period after all, but then came the first mistake. The pilot did not update the FMC with the new shortcut, so the autopilot still followed Route 2A, gradually lowering altitude, 1,000 feet per minute, whereas the shorter 1C route needed a much steeper descent. By the time they reached Makli, the plane, which should have been at 7,000 feet, was still at 10,000 feet. The controller warned them, "Your altitude is too high. Will you circle to reduce it?" The captain replied, "No, we'll manage." At this point, the pilot still didn't realize the FMC was following the wrong route. The data was right in front of them, but they ignored it. To reduce altitude quickly, the nose was pushed down. The plane was descending at a dangerous 2,400 feet per minute. The speed also surged. 21 kilometers from the runway, they were at 6,000 feet. They should have been at 3,000. Double the safe altitude. The control tower tried repeatedly to contact the captain, but, according to the flight data recorder, the pilot had accidentally changed the radio frequency. Unable to reach him, the controller used emergency frequency and warned, "You are at 6,000 feet. You should be at 3,000. He advised orbiting again, but the captain refused. "No, we are already established on final approach." The first officer was told, "Look, they'll be surprised after we land." This was recorded on the cockpit voice recorder and heard by the control tower. Even after another instruction to orbit, the captain refused a third time. Finally, the captain realized something was wrong. Oh, what happened? Wait. Cancel hold. The first officer ended his hold and handed full control to the captain. Until this point, the first officer was flying. The captain's job was to monitor, but he didn't realize the landing gear wasn't deployed. PK8303 was descending fast. At one point, it was flying at over 650 kilometers per hour. Multiple alarms blared. As they neared the runway, another alarm went off. Landing gear not deployed. The first officer, now nervous, asked, "Sir, should we take an orbit, reduce speed and altitude?" But the captain stood firm. They went ahead with the landing, with gear still up. In just 16 seconds, the plane touched the runway 4 times. It jolted violently, and the engine scraped the ground, leaking oil. The alarms were deafening. The captain, now clearly shaken, realized the gravity of the mistake. The first officer shouted, "Sir, take off, take off!" Panicking, the captain complied and lifted the plane off again. But experts say, at that point they should have stayed on the ground. Even if the engine caught fire, they were close to emergency services. Help was near, but they didn't. Now, airborne again. One engine had failed from scraping the runway. The other wasn't doing well either. Oil was leaking. The plane climbed to 3,000 feet, preparing for another approach. The tower cleared all runways for emergency landing. But then, vibrations began in the second engine. It gave out too. Now, the plane was flying without any engines, rapidly losing altitude. The captain deployed the landing gear early this time, but it slowed the plane down even more. At 600 feet, they were aligned with the runway. But the captain knew, "We won't make it." He made the final call.
Sir, Mayday, Pakistan 8303.
Mayday. Seconds later, just 1,340 meters short of the runway, PK8303 crashed into the rooftops of Model Colony. The blast was heard for miles. Thick, black smoke filled the sky. Out of 99 people on board, only 2 miraculously survived. 1 life was also lost on the ground due to the crash. Emergency teams rushed in, but the narrow streets made rescue operations extremely difficult. According to the investigation report, the captain was mainly responsible, repeatedly violating rules and ignoring ATC instructions. The air traffic controller also failed. They never warned the pilot that the landing gear was not down. Lastly, both pilots were fasting that day, meaning they hadn't eaten or drunk anything for over 7 to 8 hours. As a result, fasting while flying was later banned. To make matters worse, the report revealed that 40% of PIA pilots did not have valid licenses. Thank you for your love and support. We'll see you again in another shocking, real-life story.